So in this video, we're going to talk very much about releasing the right arm. So this is something that in my golf swing, it makes a big difference if I can feel like I'm able to sort of release that right arm coming into that hit. It makes me feel like I can really whip the club through, as opposed to if I sort of feel like that's not as active. And also with lots of students that I work with, either face-to-face lessons or online lessons, I know that golfers end up sort of trying to do this, but they're getting it wrong. And the main reason why is that most amateurs will see a professional golfer look like this at the point of impact, and they'll therefore try and mimic that type of motion. Okay, so they'll try and mimic the idea of getting the shoulder down, keeping the arm bent. But when you think about it, if you try to keep your arm bent and you try to drop your shoulder down, both of those aren't very sort of natural sort of motions, right? And we're going to explain that as this video goes on, and it will change very much your approach. Now, first things first, we have to figure out how we're going to drop the shoulder down. Okay, so if I sort of demonstrate a backswing position here, putting the club across my shoulders, what we need to do is two things. Because if I start my downswing where I just turn, okay, so I'm just triggering a rotation here of both my chest and my lower body. What you can see is my right shoulder does move, but it moves very sort of horizontally. So even if I go into my golf posture, you can see the way that it still turns, but it turns very much this way. And what we need is it to kind of move more downward. Now, what some people say is that you've just got to drop your shoulder down through like a right-centered bend. But if I kind of do that in isolation, even with a bit of turn, you can kind of see the way that I still end up behind the ball. So what you need to do is you need to shift your weight. Okay, and that's why it's so important. So as I start this downswing position, you can now see the way that I am turning, but I'm equally moving in towards my lead side. And now you can see that right shoulder drops very much down. Now that's the first thing. The second thing is your right arm. Your right arm should be straightening, okay? And it should be straightening in such a way where you should really feel like when you sort of start this downswing, you want to feel like your right palm is pushing that club away from you. Because what this movement does here is it helps get the club low to the ground in this pre-impact. And what I do with a lot of students is if you don't feel like you want to push it in transition, then at least get the feeling as you're coming in towards this pre-impact that you're pushing it down to the ground here. Okay, because that means that you're going to keep that club shaft leading coming in towards the hit. And it's putting both of those movements together that makes a massive difference. Now, before I sort of go back into golf, it's the same sort of analogy as if you were going to skim a stone, okay? If you were going to skim a stone, you might look at somebody skim a stone in slow motion and they might look something like this. But the way they're skimming a stone is not by kind of dropping the shoulder down and keeping the arm bent. What's happening is that they need to get the shoulder down, so they move in towards the left side, and then they are obviously releasing the arm, but because the shoulder is dropping down at a similar rate of motion as the arm is releasing, that's why the arm will obviously look very bent. So that's what you want to work on. You want to practice it, as I do with my students, just like working on the linear motion and then working on the releasing motion on their own. But one of the exercises you can do is a nice pump drill. Okay, so that means that you kind of swing up towards the top, and as you sort of start this downswing position, you want to get the feeling of moving towards the lead side. Okay, as I simultaneously feel like I'm pushing the club towards the floor, and you can kind of do that kind of 1, 2, and then try and hit it on the third attempt, and the results will be surprisingly really good. I'll see you soon.